everyone. Welcome to this new episode of the India InsurTech podcast. Today we have with us Vinod, who's the Chief Business Officer of Aktivo Labs. Welcome to the podcast, Vinod.
Thank you. Great to be here.
Perfect. What we'd like to talk to you about, Vinod, is to understand the new role of behavioral data in Indian insurance. So that's a heavy topic. What we'd like to first start off with is to get to know you a little bit and get to know Aktivo Labs more.
Sure. Thanks, Prashant. So I work on the commercial and strategic side of digital health, insurance, and enterprise partnerships. And at Aktivo Labs, my role sits at the intersection of market strategy, partnerships, product positioning, and how we take behavioral health intelligence into large enterprise ecosystems. What has been interesting in my work is that the same question keeps coming across different markets, whether we are speaking to insurers or health platforms or telecommunication companies, employers, or even benefits players. And the question is, how do you move from one-time transactions to ongoing value? And in insurance specifically, that question becomes even more important. So how does an insurer move from being seen only as a claims payer to becoming a more active partner in helping customers understand and manage risk? So that is the space I spend a lot of time thinking about, how behavioral data, AI, digital engagement, and commercial models can come together to create better outcomes for customers and better economics for insurers. So
Got it.
I also look at this from a broader market lens, what is working, what has not worked, and what other markets are experimenting with, and what India can adapt in a practical way.
Okay. No, that's very interesting. I think two things that I took away. One thing is, the behavioral health intelligence. And the second one is how do you transition from one-time value to ongoing value? I think these are really interesting from a problem statement perspective. I understand the gap came about from one-time to ongoing value. How are you seeing, what's the proposition you have for insurers or your partners across, markets? What's the proposition that you have?
Yeah. So Activo Labs helps insurers use everyday behavior as an early signal of health risk. So our starting point is very simple. So health risk, which includes factors that influence morbidity and mortality, moves every day. But insurance usually sees it only at certain moments, like during underwriting or a renewal of a policy or hospitalization or claim. But if you think about it, like every person, regardless of where they live or what healthcare access they have, they generate lifestyle signals daily. Um, we sleep, we sit, we exert physical effort, we move around, we build routines. Now,
Hmm.
this may sound basic, but they're scientifically meaningful because they reflect modifiable risk, the kind of risk that can improve or deteriorate over time. So Activo helps insurers turn these lifestyle signals that customers choose to share into practical intelligence. So there are two tracks. For the customer, the value is that the policy can become easier to understand, more useful in their daily lives. Like what benefits do I have? When should I use them? What should I do next to protect my health and my family? So this could mean better education before buying a policy, more confidence after becoming a policyholder, clearer guidance on which benefits are available,
Yeah.
or timely prompts before a health issue becomes serious. So that's one track for the customers. For insurers, it means earlier visibility into pre-claims risk. That leads to
Hmm.
smarter interventions, better engagement, and over time, improved claims economics. So the idea is to use everyday behavior to make insurance more preventive and more personal. And to me, ultimately, the goal is to make insurance more useful before a claim happens.
Yeah. That makes sense. And how do you collect this data? Do you have integrations with different wearables? How is this data collected?
Yes, absolutely. So Active actually helps insurers leverage behavioral data in three ways. So first, we help translate everyday lifestyle signals into practical intelligence. So on their own, if I collect a data point or a couple of data points, like maybe activity or sleep or sedentary behavior patterns, that can feel like raw data, which can come from, let's say, your phone itself, your smartphone itself,
Yeah.
or connected fitness trackers. But the value actually comes from interpreting those data over time. So
Mm.
looking at consistency or deterioration, improvement, or risk movement. Now, second, we connect that intelligence to the customer experience. So we can collect the data from any smartphone. So whether you're using an Android phone or
Mm.
Apple iPhone, we use that data. And the goal is not just to show that data on a dashboard, like what you would see
Mm.
maybe on an Apple Health or a Google Health.
Correct.
But the goal is to help the customer understand in context of their policy, know which benefits they can use, receive timely prompts, and basically take the next best action before a health issue becomes serious. And I'd like to add a third point also. So for the insurer, while we collect and harmonize all of this data, the insurer can use this behavioral data at a portfolio level, at a population level. So that
Yeah.
means they can identify cohorts that may be showing,
Proxies.
they can show higher risk, pre-claims risk, understanding which users are engaging, seeing which journeys are working, or prioritizing interventions more intelligently. So the real value is not only the connections. So while the connection exists, the connection will give you data, but the data itself may not be as valuable as it is turning it into action. So for the customer and for
Mm.
the insurer.
Okay. It's interesting because there's a lot of data, and I'm also curious to know how you're using AI across your business right now. Of course, AI is a hot topic. It goes without say that I ask you how you're using it, but of course, because there is a lot of data predictions that you can make out of it, synthesize all of this data. So my question to you is, how are you leveraging AI across your organization today? And then we'll probably even come into how it's supporting your business, so on and so forth.
Sure. So, I mean, it's a timely question indeed. I just think it's important also to separate AI from just Gen AI. So a lot of the public conversation today is about LLMs and generative AI.
Correct.
But Activo actually has been using AI in the broader sense for some
Mm.
time now. So particularly machine learning and predictive
Mm.
analytics in the backend. So for us, AI did not start with the chatbots. It started
Okay.
with a simple question like, can we use behavioral, lifestyle, and health-related signals to identify patterns, segment risk, and support early intervention?
Okay. Okay. From an underwriting perspective and from a prediction perspective, is AI helping you in the sense, are you able to get better results out of the data you're collecting? Are you able to use it, and are insurers and partners able to leverage it better? Are customers able to leverage it better via the insurers? And if you can give us maybe a couple of use cases and how you're using, I think that'll be helpful.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think that's a very important question. So today we are seeing that these machine learning models that we had created that supports areas such as, like I said, predictive risk analytics or cohort segmentation, behavioral pattern recognition, and intervention prioritization. Now, these are moving because where Gen AI and LLMs become interesting is the next layer. So making those insights more understandable and actionable, both for the customer and for the insurance, like you said, on the underwriting or product side. So
Mm.
if I can just separate that. So for the customer, that could mean simpler explanations or
Yeah.
more personalized policy education, clearer benefit guidance, and more relevant next best actions.
Yeah.
On the insurer side, it could mean helping the product team or the health team, the actuaries, or the customers team ask better questions of that data. So, which cohorts are fluctuating, which are deteriorating, which interventions are working, where benefit activation is low, or where earlier outreach may be needed. So in insurance and health, we must also keep in mind that AI has to be used responsibly. So it should not be a black box, making some unexplained decisions about customers. So it should be governed, explainable, permission-led, and aligned with regulation. So I would frame how Activo's sort of AI is helping in two layers. One is predictive intelligence in the backend, and more personalized and explainable engagement in the front end. Now, there are more deeper journeys. Happy to elaborate that if you'd like.
Okay. Now, I want to get a summary of, what I've understood from your business and then move on to what my last question will be for you. So what I've understood is Aktivo Labs is a platform that is able to collect data from consumers, that builds a platform. It's a middleware platform that you collect data, or you take in data from consumers, you use that, synthesize that, and leverage, and the insurers then leverage that platform to make better decisions when it comes to underwriting, claims ratios, and also supporting customers maintain their health better. Is this the ecosystem that you're building in the intersection of? And if you think my explanation was wrong, I'd love to hear your version of it.
No, I think you're absolutely right, Prashant. And let me also add one more layer um, to maybe just elaborate like why this matters now
Yeah.
and why this matters for the Indian insurance ecosystem right now. And
Yeah.
actually, if I may, I can think of a few reasons. So first, India has the scale. We know that it has the ambition. And if the industry is working towards insurance for all by 2047, then distribution alone will not be enough, right? Which
Mm.
is often the priority. So we also need relevance. We need inclusiveness. We need trust, engagement, and prevention. That is key. Why? Because that leads me to the second reason. Because India's health risk burden is changing. Non-communicable diseases now account for roughly two-thirds of deaths in India. Now, these are not
Oh,
risks that appear overnight, right?
yeah.
So they build over time through many different factors, including behavior, lifestyle, the environment that you're in, access, and delayed intervention. So just to give you a quick data point, right? If you look at diabetes alone, India has over
Mm.
100 million people living with diabetes and another 136 million living with pre-diabetes. So that tells us something important, that the opportunity is not only to detect the disease after it appears, but to identify patterns earlier and guide people before deterioration. And so that leads me to my third and final reason, that is healthcare cost in India is absolutely a household issue. So even though India has improved, right, but out-of-pocket expense for health expenditure remains well over 40%. So for the customer, this is not an abstract conversation, right?
Oh,
It is
yeah.
about protection. It is about affordability and knowing what support is available before a medical event becomes financially disruptive. So that is where behavioral health intelligence, like you were saying, can become very, very
Mm.
relevant. It can connect the health side of the customer's life with the insurance side of the relationship.
Yeah. I have a follow-up question to this. A lot of consumers will also be skeptical about the data that you take. And if you take, again, I'll just take my example, right? Let's say you take some of my data, you give it to the insurer, or the insurer gets access to it, and I have an insurance policy with that person or with that insurer. Can it also negatively affect me where they say, "Oh, this guy is super risky. We should not underwrite this person. We should not underwrite them." If I'm already a customer of theirs, uh, do you get such objections?
So I think I would not dismiss that field, right? I think it is correct to be careful, and insurance decisions cannot be based on weak, noisy, or poorly governed data, right? So
Correct.
and but it's also I feel that not the right way to think about behavioral data. So because the value is in longitudinal patterns, right? And you're absolutely
Hmm.
right that we have to keep the customer sort of front, right, and center. And this is probably the most important question in this space. So the customer will not share data just because the insurer wants more data. The value
Correct.
exchange has to be clear. It has to be immediate and trustworthy. So the proposition cannot be, share your data so the insurer can understand you better. That sounds one-sided.
Yeah.
So, you have to shift the proposition. It has to be something like share your data so you get something useful back. Now,
Yeah.
that could be understanding your policy better, or clearer guidance on what benefits you have, relevant health prompts, or bringing in your family into the conversation, screening recommendation, different incentives, chronic disease support, or help knowing what to do before a health issue becomes serious. So there's
Yeah.
many levers you can pull on.
Yeah.
But just I would go one level deeper. Most people are not motivated every day by some abstract health improvement. Some are, sure, that's a small segment. Some people respond to financial incentives, Others respond to social motivation. Some respond to family responsibility. Some respond to peace of mind. So the product has to be designed around multiple motivations. So
Yeah.
financial incentives matter, social incentives matter, moral incentives matter. And insurance relevance matters, most importantly. So understanding whether your policy is protecting you properly, that
Mm.
last part is very important. So the insurer
Mm.
should not say, here is a health feature. It should say, what is your health behavior, what it may mean for your protection, your benefits, and what action you can take next. So that changes the experience from you giving permissions to a generic health tracker to a policy companion.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. And I think from a customer's perspective, not only the engagement, but the proactive, nudges towards improving it is so meaningful, which I think is making so much of sense. To my last question now, Vinod, I'd like to understand what's exciting you about the future of the Indian insurance and the health tech space, really, and what keeps you going on a daily basis running at Kivo Labs?
That's a good question. So what excites me is that insurance has the opportunity to become much more proactive. For many customers, insurance is still something they buy and then they hope they never have to use. Then traction is often limited to purchase, renewal, and claim. Now,
Yeah,
with the evolution of digital engagement, behavioral data, AI, insurance can become much more present in the customer's life in a useful way. They can help people understand their health, use their policy benefits, identify risk earlier, activate preventative care, and understand whether their protection is adequate.
yeah,
Now, for the customers, it means insurer becomes more useful before a claim happens. And
yeah,
for insurers, it means deeper engagement, better risk understanding, and more sustainable customer relationships. And just as a whole, the ecosystem, it means insurance can become more preventive, more personalized, more inclusive, and more intelligent. And this is, I think, important because if India's ambition is insurance for all by 2047, then the industry cannot rely only on distribution. It also has to solve relevance, trust, engagement, and prevention. So that is where behavioral intelligence can play a big role. And to me, that is the real meaning of going beyond just wellness. It is about using everyday behavioral signals to help customers understand their health, their risk, and their protection better, and to make insurance more useful before a claim happens.
got it. So that's fantastic, Vinod. That's meaningful and purposeful. Really, really happy that you could join this podcast with us, and thank you so much for your time. And from IIA, of course, we are cheering for you and hoping to see you succeed from strength to strength.
Thank you so much, Prashant. Thank you for having me.
Thank you.